a fairly significant faux pas creeped into my end of the year content for 2024. I did a few videos where I talked about some of my favorite science fiction books of the year, but I did not talk about some of the non-science fiction books that I really loved in 2024. And there were a lot of amazing titles. I'd like to tell you about a few of them. So this is going to be non-SF top 5, no ranking order. If you're here mostly for the science fiction reads, I still recommend you stick around because these books are excellent. These books are varied and they're amazing. A couple of bonus selections. Stephen King with Salem's Lot. This was read as part of my Dark Tower experience. And Dark Tower for me just stands alone. It's beyond any ranking. But Salem's Lot was really good. Fun, unputdownable, page turner, a lot of great ideas. And it really ties beautifully into the Dark Tower. It's a must read if you're reading the Dark Tower. This is a must read. Another book I want to mention as an honorable mention, bonus selection, would be The Way of Idan, which I had a very good time reading. Slow down in the middle a little bit. The ending was really interesting, and I listened to it on Audible, and that experience was also amazing. So those two are my bonus selections. Let's talk about some of the books that made it on the list of my favorite non-SF reads of 2024. And we're gonna start off with a difficult read, The Bluest Eye by the amazing Toni Morrison. Toni Morrison's Beloved is one of my, if not the favorite book of all time for me. Just such a powerful story. And this was no exception. The Bluest Eye is the first book that Toni Morrison published, I believe. And right away, she steps into her wheelhouse with this book. It is powerful. It is an uncomfortable read for sure. A lot of things happen here that were difficult to read, difficult to think about or visualize. A lot of pain just seeps out of the pages of this book. It is an uncomfortable, a difficult, but an important read. Well written, as always, beautifully weaved together. It's a story of a Black girl who's struggling with her identity and who unfortunately goes through some horrible ordeals. Well written, powerful. I'm so glad that I read this book. With Toni Morrison, I cannot read too many of them because these books are very heavy. Beloved is very heavy. So is The Bluest Eye, but an important read, great book. Now let's talk about an author who really made a huge impression on me in 2024. I'm talking about Kazuo Ishiguro. I read, I think, 4 of his books. I'm going to continue on and probably read 3 or 4 more in 2025. But 2 of the books that really stood out to me, well, they were all amazing. Clara and the Sun was a revelation. As Never Let Me Go was an interesting read. Those 2 are definitely firmly within the science fiction genre. Remains of the Day, on the other hand, is a story of a butler in a world that is slowly passing him by, slowly disappearing, slowly fading. And as he reminisces on his life, on what he was able to achieve, accomplish, and the things that he missed out on, we are taken for an incredible, deep, and also, just like with Toni Morrison, at times uncomfortable ride. I thought this book was powerful. It's a slow read. It's not a book that I would recommend to everyone, but it is a book that made a huge impression on me with its truth, with its heart. Just amazing. Another Kazuo Ishiguro that made the list for me. This book had to make the list for me because it was such a unique read, such a different type of story. The Buried Giant, just as with his science fiction books, when you read Ishiguro's science fiction like Clara and the Sun, you are reading science fiction, but it doesn't feel like your typical SF. This is fantasy, but it's different. It's unique. It's Kazuo Ishiguro's take on fantasy. A beautiful book, slow at times, like the mist that settles over the land in this book, full of subtlety, like all of the books by Kazuo Ishiguro that I've read so far, full of subtlety and things that you have to kind of figure out from the subcontext, things that are unsaid, but rather felt by the reader. Powerful. Kazuo Ishiguro is an amazing writer, Nobel Prize laureate for a good reason. I love Kazuo Ishiguro. I enjoyed every single book by him. And Buried Giant, I did as well. It's an unusual fantasy. I wonder what those who read fantasy a little bit more than I do would think of it. I'm curious. So leave a comment down below. Let me know if you've read any of these books. I'd love to hear from you. Now, another author who made a gigantic impression on me with her quite small books is, of course, Claire Keegan. And these are the two books, and I could not really choose one or the other. If I had to, perhaps Foster, because of the child being the protagonist of the story, would maybe stand out. But Small Things Like These was incredible, and me and my wife and I, we loved the movie also. Fantastic movie. If you read the book, you have to check out the movie. The movie is very faithful to it, but gives you just a little bit of a different perspective on a difficult situation that was occurring for a long time in Ireland. A historical novel in that sense, but full of love, full of hope also, and the triumph of the human spirit. As is Foster, such a simple story. In less than 100 pages, I think, you get a gut punch of a story that shows you how little kids really need, how little love they need to blossom. And these stories are just beautiful. Miracles, jewels, lovely stories, and I cannot wait to read more from Claire Keegan. We have another book of hers that has some short stories that I'm looking forward to reading. Joanna, my wife, you may have seen her on the previous video that we did together. I'll link it down below if you missed that one. Check it out. And I think if I had to choose a book of the year, I don't know, it'd be very tough, but perhaps All the Pretty Horses would be that book by Cormac McCarthy. I'm not ranking these books, so I'm not necessarily saying, I haven't thought about it. But yes, this was so beautiful, and this was such a full story also, such an amazing tale with so many intricate moments, with so many emotions, from love to pain to disillusionment. Just a lot happening in this story by the author of The Road, of course, and such a fantastic story about a time and a place that I really don't think much about. This takes place on the southern border with Mexico. It takes place on both sides of the border, of course. A lot of it, the bulk of the real story takes place in Mexico, on the Mexican side in the 50s. I used to love to read and watch Westerns, but those, of course, took place in the 19th century typically. This feels like a Western set in firmly in the 20th century. Unique place, unique story, great protagonist, great love story also. Just a fantastic book, front to back. Great story. Fabulous ending, fabulous beginning, great middle. Not a single word out of place with this book. All the Pretty Horses by Cormac McCarthy. Yeah, so these are some of my favorite non-science fiction reads of 2024. There were a few others that also were good. I really had a great year of reading. I've been really very picky with my choices, and yeah, I'm happy about that. I would like to continue to read. Obviously, I'm gonna read mostly science fiction. By mostly, I mean, I don't know what it is, 75% science fiction, but each month I'd like to mix in a book that's outside the genre of SF, just to keep me on my toes, just to keep me aware of what's going on in the literary world when it comes to some of these older titles, like All the Pretty Horses or Remains of the Day, or the newer ones like Claire Keegan. I think being a well-rounded reader really helps me enjoy science fiction. So bouncing between the different genres helps me get back to science fiction and appreciate the grandeur of those ideas, the mind-bending, mind-blowing ideas that science fiction brings. And I definitely love those. But yeah, reading outside the genre definitely helps me to appreciate them. And if you, like me, are a sci-fi first reader, leave a comment down below and let me know if you also enjoy reading other genres, what those might be, and what the percentage may be for you. So anyway, I'm really excited about 2025, as I'm going to be reading a lot of amazing science fiction, but also checking out some fabulous titles outside the genre. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.